Climate children. So we all know who this girl is on the left, but I bet you don't know who that girl is on the right on my thumbnail. Let's get into it.
People need to be awake and they need to be aware. They need to stand up against the sun. People need to be awake.
Alright, so go back to, so this is, her name is Severin Suzuki. Yes, it's spelled wrong in here. She spoke to the UN in 1992. Her father is also a climate nut job. Maybe not nut job, but he's a climate activist, far lefty.
Hello, I'm Severin Suzuki, speaking for Echo.
So she also and
We're a group of 12 and 13-year-olds trying to make a difference. Vanessa Seti, Morgan Geisler, Michelle Quigg, and me. We've raised all the money to come here ourselves.
just because you go and get, I mean, raising money, what is that? You ask someone for money and then you get it. Like, even if her parents gave her the money or whatever, or her parents pointed her to the organizations to go to get her money, and she had her father's last name, who would have been known to people as an activist, you know, what, that's supposed to, like, impress people. That doesn't impress me. So this is her page. She's still doing this climate activism. She's 39, gonna be 40 in like 2 months. This is her, I guess she would have been in her early 30s. I think it's 7 years ago. So she went back to Rio and spoke, and so she has 6,000 followers. Oh, one of the things that she said was, in her speech that she gave to Rio, she had claimed, "I'm afraid to go out in the sun now because of the hole in our ozone." That was really big back in like the 80s, and it was more the 80s. I guess it creeped into the early 90s as well. "I'm afraid to breathe the air because I don't know what chemicals are in it." That was a big thing. It was like, there was a scare that you can't use aerosol hairspray because it supposedly harmed the ozone layer, which is O3s. We learned all about this stuff in school because I was indoctrinated in the public school system. Yay! But, like, now I see this stuff and I'm like, oh yeah, that was totally BS. Look at all this time we wasted on this stuff that was, like, propaganda. And then they would tell us, we don't do propaganda anymore. We can trust the media. They actually, my teacher who taught us all this environmental garbage all the time, it was the teacher I had in 5th and 6th grade. She also used to brag about how her and her husband shared the chores. She was a big feminist. She so she was really into all this lefty garbage, and she used to talk about, like, oh, you can't use your hairspray. She loved to have us read the paper, and then she would say, like, things like, oh, we can trust the media. It's great that we have the media. Like, everything we learned from her, it was such, like, I didn't know it at the time, of course, but, like, now I look back and I'm like, oh yeah, that was total leftist propaganda. And meanwhile, she would, like, teach us about how they do propaganda in the Soviet Union. We're so lucky they don't do that in the USA. And, like, now, being politically waking up, I'm like, I see it all the time. I'm like, it's such a lie. And, of course, this propaganda they're pushing on the kids. They teach it in school, and the kids really think of, like, school as an authority. I was, my mother, basically had this attitude like school was an authority, even though she actually sued the school system because they kind of abused me as a child. And as it was happening, I kept telling my mother, and she wouldn't like do anything about it until like it got really bad, and then like she spoke up and like sued them. But it's like, yeah, maybe you should have listened to me like 2 years ago when I told you this was going on. And anyway, I'm getting on a tangent. So she has 6,000 followers. So I was saying here how she had said in her speech that she was afraid to go outside. If you take a look at her Instagram, you see pictures like this. We assume she went outside and took this picture. Here's a picture of her outside. Here's a picture of her outside. I don't know if this is her, but if not, she probably went outside to take the picture. Looks like she got over her fear of going outside. Here's another one. I believe this is her kayaking, boating, where she was either the one in the boat or she went outside to take a picture of people in a sailboat. She's outside here, she's outside here, she's outside here. Looks like she got over her fear of being outside. I mean, I don't like being outside, but I'm not like an environmental nut about it. So it's kind of funny because it's like, even if I had pictures of myself up, you wouldn't find pictures of me outside because I don't really go outside very much. I mean, I go where I need to go and I get there and that's it. Like, looks like she's almost like an outdoorsy person, which I went through an outdoorsy phase, but most of my life I've been a total homebody. But, I mean, clearly I'm scrolling through. You're seeing all these pictures that are either taken outside, so she probably took them outside, or pictures of her, where this is her father. She's half Japanese, by the way. I know he looks like a leftist Mr. Miyagi. Look, she's outside. She gives it because she's grateful. She loves Mother Earth and she's outside. Here's another picture. It looks like she likes to go kayaking because these pictures are spread apart, not the same kayaking trip. So it looks like she's gone kayaking at least twice. Probably more. Looks like she's eating fish again. She had said in the speech that she didn't like, oh, look, she's outside here. Anyway, so yeah, there's a lot of pictures of her outside, and she is outdoors at a climate whatever. There's one of those today. I'll see if I can get any video of it. And then what's interesting is you look at this right here, and look at who she's giving a shout out to. It's like the mini me of her. So and then the exact same, go over here, the exact same graphic, or whatever you call it, this promotional, that's probably a better way to put it. The same promotional is here on Greta's page. So that's like the promotional that they're doing. So they're even with like the same group. And some people say, oh yes, well, she was doing this 30 years ago and the governments aren't doing anything about, climate, yada, yada, yada. I think we could take them more seriously if the response was, like, when my teacher would say something like, we're using fossil fuels and so on and so forth faster than the earth can create them. Well, yeah. And at some point, if they don't come up with alternative forms of energy, yeah, we're going to completely lose forms of energy. And, so, like, if they talked about that, I think people could, like, agree with them. But the problem is that they use this, like, fear-mongering and just craziness where they say, like, the earth is, like, gonna completely, like, not exist in 10 years. And they said that when I was in the 80s, when I was a child. And when Severn was a child, they said that. And yet, I'm still here. They said, oh, we have 10 years to live, or 12 years to live, or whatever it was. I remember my teacher, my leftist teacher from 5th and 6th grade, she said that. And, you know, none of that stuff came true. And she said this stuff to us, and I remember thinking, like, she kept saying it, like, looking at us like she was waiting for some kind of, like, big reaction from us. Like, I think she wanted us to get really upset. And I remember thinking, like, why are you looking at me like that? Like, I'm just a kid. Like, I can't do anything. Okay, somebody should do something. Like, but really, like, they're wasting school time that should be spent on reading, writing, and arithmetic, teaching kids this propaganda. All the while, they tell kids, oh, no, we don't do propaganda in the U.S. Sure you don't. Let's just bring in TFK to class, which is Time for Kids. This guy on Discord who's like, I don't know, 12 or 13 or something like that. He said that he said he moved, so he changed schools. But when he was in like 5th and 6th grade, his school did TFK. He was like, do you know about TFK? So eventually I wanted to do a video on TFK, which is Time for Kids. So they always talk about corporatism, and yet they allow it. They're allowing, like, these hyper-corporate entities, like Time, to create materials that are being studied in class. Like I said, we read the paper in class. Like, they have Time magazine for kids. They have lesson plans and this and that. I actually did a whole paper in college, like 10-page paper, not a 20-page paper. I did 20-page papers on other stuff, but I did a 10-page paper on like commercialization of childhood and the bringing in of all these corporate interests into the classroom. And it's real, it keeps getting worse and worse. Okay, so this is Greta's father. And just like Suzuki's dad, he's a total leftist. Both of them had fathers who, like, seem to have gotten them into this, who were, like, super leftists. And you see her father has 2,000 followers, but she has 2.5 million. So that lends some credibility to some of the people who say, like, they're living vicariously through their kid or whatever. I mean, even that announcer that was on their side, what did he say? He announced her. Did I cover this? I don't think. Oh, I didn't cover this. No, a little bit more. There.
Operatic career in order to, well, for the sake of her daughter's budding career as a climate activist, shall we say. I
really am annoyed by this idea that, you know, this child is going around claiming that she's doing this because she cares about the environment. She's scared. She's not going to grow up. Her childhood is being stolen from her. But it's a career for her. And I know some people aren't going to like this, but it reminds me of when Candace Owens, Candox, was debating Blair White, and she kept saying things like, my career, my image, my brand. She actually, it's the same thing. Like, to them, it's not about activism because they care about the issues. I mean, maybe they do, but it's more about, like, I want to make a living off of promoting this point of view. And I don't know, something about that doesn't sit well with me, especially when it leaks that it's a brand or a career. But for the most part, they sit there and pretend that they actually care about it in a way that isn't tied to a brand or career. I mean, it's funny that that's how they introduce Greta on that show, that talk show that her and her father were on. But I was watching Suzuki, the Papa Suzuki, Severin's father, and he was complaining about corporatism. But when you consider activism your career, aren't you getting involved in a form of corporatism? Because you're making money trying to fearmonger people into voting to give power to corporate elites and other governments. I mean, I don't know enough about other governments to know. Like, we of course have, unfortunately our government has way too much influence by corporations. So I would agree with these people on that regard, that we have way too much influence from large corporations. But they make it out like that's a left issue and that the right is the ones with the power. But all the big corporations nowadays, I don't know how it was when I was a kid. They always told us the Republicans were for big corporations. But I'm looking up now and getting involved in politics now, and I see all these big corporations, and they are pushing for the left. They are, I just posted it on my Twitter. I got... Never got put in Facebook jail. Never got put in Twitter jail. I'm in Instagram jail right now. So, but, these big corporations, I guess it's a form of Facebook jail because Facebook owns Instagram. But yeah, I've never heard of anybody in Instagram jail. I've heard of Facebook jail and Twitter jail. I've never heard of anyone, in YouTube jail. But I'm in Instagram jail. Actually, I've been in YouTube jail. So, anyway. Yeah. This is the organization that's behind a lot of this stuff. So if you see this logo and you're wondering where it is, I was wondering where it was, and so I went looking. I did a reverse image source. So that's the name of the group. And on Savant's Twitter page, you will find, if you go way down, you'll find that he was retweeting that organization a lot. I think even there was something kind of recent where he retweeted them even. There's different groups that are using that logo. Here we go. Here's one. So here's one where they're using that logo and he retweeted it. But if you go way down, you'll eventually find he retweets a lot of stuff regarding his daughter. Honey, I think she needs to be retweeting you, not the other way around. You have 2,000 followers. She has 2.5 million. Your following is peanuts compared to her. Like, his following is, like, literally less than 1/10 of her following. Actually, no, 1%, right? Anyway, I don't feel like doing the math. It's too early, and I gotta go. So, final tab that I wanted to cover. So, Magdalene Rose is a channel that I talk about, and that I follow her, and she actually follows me on Twitter and Instagram. She always advises people not to talk about Greta, and she says, don't talk about Greta because they're trying to derive something from reacting to the right. I don't think we're that important to the left. One of the problems actually with the right is that and this is something I've been wanting to talk about for a while, so I'm going to segue into this, which is semi off topic but related, is we allow the left to drive our narratives. People on the right are talking about Greta because most of the people making content on the right react to the left. In fact, some of them so obviously so. There's so many channels out there where literally they watch the leftist version of the news, and then what they do is they drive and make a video saying, I saw this on CNN, I saw this on MSNBC, and here's what I think about it. How many channels are like that? Tons. No graphics, no editing, and these channels are very big, and all they're literally doing is, I mean, Ben Shapiro is a little better prepared than these people, but that's all he does. Oh, the left talked about this, and here's my reaction to it. Many channels on the right, that is their focus, and I wish that channels on the right would change that. And so you're probably thinking, well, how can channels on the right change that? Well, what we could do is we can try to drive the information. So if you look at Project Veritas is a news organization on the right, and they drive news from the right. They go and they do investigations, and then they drive a story. And then maybe the left covers it, or maybe they don't. I think we should try to cover stuff like that. That's in a lot of the videos I do are also me kind of driving news, because I dig up stuff from the left, but it's not like leftist news sources. Like, I go through a lot of my early stuff was where I would go through the website of that communist group, Revolutionary Communist Party / Refuse Fascism, that are basically the same group, and they're run by the same people. Literally, and the board of directors are exactly the same people. Anyway, I mean, maybe there's like one or two swap outs, but it's basically the same guy started both of them. Most of the board of directors, maybe all of it. I don't quote me on that, because the last time I saw, but I compared the two of them at one point. And I was sitting there comparing the board of directors of the two organizations, and I was like, they're the same people. So I think there may have been like one or two swap outs or whatever, but it was pretty much the same people. Anyway, so they basically are the same organization. You see them cross-promoted so much. But yeah, I think it's very important for us to drive the news. Try to encourage people to follow Project Veritas. Encourage people, when they come out with a story, like, make sure you send it out to people, DM it to people, make sure that you're, same thing with Judicial Watch. They do a lot of suing to get information. They sue for a FOIA, they put in a FOIA request, and if it's not honored, they sue for it, and then he gets on, sometimes Fox, he gets on OAN a lot, they put their own information out. Mostly it's Tom, sometimes or other people from the organization. That's another really great organization that drives news from the right. So we need to elevate that sort of thing. Sometimes Daily Caller does their own investigations. So when right-wing news sources are doing their own news, and even just doing their own research and stuff, those are the channels that we should be elevating. These people who watch the news on the left, drive around, like that's not journalism, and they want us to support them. We need to stop supporting these people. We need to stop, constantly sharing don't share their videos. Make them work for it. A lot of people are sharing these people's videos because, I agree with this. Share. But, I mean, we need like research. We need news to drive from the right. So you want to promote news creators, not people just reacting to what's on CNN and MSNBC. And when we do that, when we have so many creators and we elevate creators who do that, we're elevating them, we're giving them the ability to drive our news. Push creators to move towards doing research, putting out information. Don't accept that. Oh, because, you agree with them. Of course you agree with them. We're all on the right. We have the same basic outlook. It's lazy journalism. It's allowing, when you promote that because you agree to their reaction, by promoting it, you're still, in a way, promoting the left. You're giving the left authority to drive our news. So, we have to stop doing that. So I am kind of reacting to this, but I'm also reporting about this Severin that not a lot of people knew about it. I haven't seen any creators that I subscribe to. I haven't seen any of them cover Severin yet. I saw somebody leak her on Twitter, and I found out about her from the comment section. Somebody talked about her, and I went and looked her up. So, alright, this video is way too long. I'm so sorry. Alright, everybody, thanks for stopping by my channel. I will see you all next time.
People need to be awake and they need to be aware. They need to stand up against the stuff. People need to be awake. People need to be awake and they need to be aware. They need to stand up against the stuff.
And it's so politically engaged. And it's so politically engaged.